Okay, this lecture is called What Happens Inside the Cell. And here we have a picture of, get oriented here, we've got a cell. And we've got the input coming into the cell like we talked about in our previous lecture entitled How to Keep a Cell Alive. We have oxygen and C6H12O6 going into the cell. This arrow represents the CO2 or the O2, and this thing going into the cell. Now this is a chemical description of glucose. As we can see, glucose is made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in a very specific arrangement. We have 6 carbon, we have 12 hydrogen atoms, and we have 6 oxygen atoms all grouped together. That forms glucose. So that with oxygen going into the cell will yield, like we talked about in the last lecture, carbon dioxide and H2O, which is water. We know what happens to the CO2 and the H2. We also talked about how this conversion from oxygen and sugar into CO2 and H2O will yield some energy that we call ATP, or down here we have it written out, adenosine triphosphate. This happens in an organelle that you may have heard of before inside the cell, a very specific part of the cell called the mitochondrion, or if you have more than one, we call it the mitochondria. Mitochondria. That would be more than one mitochondrion. And there we go. Okay. So the glucose goes in, oxygen goes in, out come these things. Now we know, or we should know from our basic science, that there's a maxim in science called, or it said that matter is neither created nor destroyed. And if we look at this is matter. Our atoms are matter. So we have 6 carbon, 6 hydrogen, 6 oxygen, 2 more oxygen right here. Over here we only have 1 carbon, not 6. We only have, let's see, 1, 2 oxygens. And then over here we have 1, so we have a total of 3 oxygens. And we only have a total of 2 hydrogens instead of 12. So how are we going to... This can't be correct because there should be an equal number of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen on both sides of this cell. The way we're going to make this work is one glucose molecule. This is called a molecule. One glucose molecule and 6 oxygen molecules go in, and what comes out are 6 CO2s and 6 H2Os. And if we count up now, if we count the molecules, we'll have, let's just do it here, C and H and O. We have 6, we have C6, we have 1 carbon molecule with 6 atoms, so there's 6 there. We have 12 hydrogen, and then we have 6 oxygen here, and then we have 6 O2s, so 6 times 2 is 12. We have 12 here, and we have 6 here, so we have a total of 18. And that has to be what we end up with over here. So let's take a look here again. We'll do C and H and O. 6 CO2s, so that means we have 6 C's. That checks out. We have 6 O2s, which is 6 times 2 is 12 of those. And then over here we have 6 H2s, again that's 12. Well, that checks out. And the last part right here we have an O, but we have 6 of them, so it's another 6 equals 18. That checks out. So matter was neither created nor destroyed. All that happened was we changed its form into, from glucose and oxygen, we turned it into some energy, which doesn't have a form. But we did create some ATP. We'll look at that in the next lecture. And we changed the rest of it into CO2 and H2O. And that's what happens inside the cell.